some of those guys went on to actually create the competition for the Source, which was XXL Magazine.
Yeah, James Benard and a guy named Reggie Dennis, they were kind of the ringleaders of the uprising against me, so to speak. Reggie was a music editor at the time, and he was the one that was really getting into it with Cypress Hill and Ice-T and having all this back and forth and just different stuff that was being printed in the magazine, just using language that you shouldn't use, things like that. But anyway, they eventually, a couple years later, were the ones who started XXL, with this magazine company, Harris Publishing. So when XXL comes out in 97, this is, a few years later, they were able to get that going. But yeah, they did start. They only lasted at XXL, not even a year, maybe 6 months, and then they were let go, and Harris brought in new people.
Those are some of the editors that walk out. But where are your other co-founders at the time? Did they walk with them?
Well, James Benard, who I've been talking about,
yep, he
was one of the partners. Correct. So that's what made the situation a little more difficult. It wasn't like I could just fire him because he was my partner, and so I was trying to be, sensitive to that. So James was part of the walkout. John Schechter, he had already, before the walkout, John had been phasing himself out of the magazine that last year. He was getting a little disillusioned with things. He came to me and told me he didn't feel comfortable being white and being the editor. And I think, the staff, James and some of the other guys were kind of playing that up to him and making him uncomfortable. And he wanted to take a sabbatical. He wanted to take some time off and go write a book. So he was already, halfway out the door when everything exploded with the walkout. But he did side with them. He didn't stay and help. But the one partner, Ed Young, that we talked about, he's the one that stood by my side. Ed, like I said, he was a business person, practical, business-minded. He understood that, this could destroy everything we had built, because when that walkout happened, it made the news because of that letter that got sent out. It was crazy. Like a few days later, my mom is calling me, and the Washington Post had an article, greedy publisher, puts article in and editors walk out, whatever, making me look like this terrible person. And it was really damaging, could have been way more damaging. So Ed, he took my side and stood by me. And, basically we went out and hired new staff and replaced all the people that had walked out, and were able to keep the magazine on schedule. We got the next issue out that next month. Scarface was on the cover, another, a really dope cover of the Source. And we just kept it moving. And then, I brought in some other amazing people. A lot of those people were incredible, writers and editors, and they contributed a lot to making the Source successful in those early years.
Is this the time that Ray Benzino now comes in as a full partner?
Yes. So some point after all this happens and the dust is settled, he really kind of, stood by me. And, there was some drama that was going on, like, when they were walking out, they were making threats and different things like that. So, he came down from Boston with some guys and, just watched my back and stuff like that. And, sometime after all the dust settles, I just, now I only have one partner, which is Ed. And, I went to him and said, yeah, maybe you should come on board, and I want to, make you a partner and help me out. I think you can help me with different things with the magazine and, the awards and other things I was doing. And that's how that happened. That was probably, like I said, maybe 95 is when I brought him in. And yeah, that's how it happened.
From your standpoint, why bring him on as a partner? I know you were getting heat from some of the editors that had left and your former partners, and also some of the artists around the hip hop industry. So bringing Benzino to the table as a partner, was this, because he had, real credibility in the streets? Was he your muscle? Did he have something else in his arsenal that you felt you needed at the time to really just help you move this publication forward? Why did you bring him on as a partner?
Yeah, I mean, no, it wasn't just the muscle part of it. Yeah, I mean, him and his crew were guys from the street, and they definitely looked out for me over the years. But Benzino was and is a huge hip hop head. I mean, he grew up on hip hop long before I got into hip hop, and that was his life. He loved it, and so he knew everything about hip hop, and he knew a lot about the streets, and that was important to the source. What made the source successful from the beginning was being able to kind of represent the streets in a credible, authentic way, and balance between taking the company into the corporate world and helping bring hip hop more into the mainstream. That's really the source had so much to do with helping hip hop go from an underground music into this mainstream commercial industry. So having that balance, being able to walk that line, and not too many, really no companies, walk that line, no other magazines. And that's always what separated us from our competition, XXL, and even before them, in the early 90s, there was Rap Pages, and then of course, Quincy Jones starts Vibe magazine. And, they had, some of those magazines had talented editors, but, these were basically, white-owned companies. Even Vibe was owned by Time Warner. Quincy owned a piece with them, but these were white-owned companies that, honestly, I don't think gave a damn about hip hop, the streets, the people, the culture. They was just to try to make money. They knew hip hop was growing, and so there was always a disconnect, because I was the one that was covering all the bases from the business side. I could walk in the room and deal with, the advertising, the circulation, any business with any corporate person, and handle that. Of course, I have my Harvard, degree and whatever, and that carries a lot of weight in those kind of circles. But, I was able to also balance it by always keeping my connections to the streets and to the people, and understanding the pulse of what's going on in the streets is what is going to kind of dictate the direction of hip hop. So I think that was a large part of it. The loyalty was part of it, that, he had been loyal to me and stuck by me through the shit I was going through. But it was also just, that idea that, having someone who's really connected to what's going on out there in the streets can be helpful to feeding ideas and stories and different things, into the magazine.